Part 78. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 771. Chapter 771 Reunion after many years 4. If you talk so much nonsense lately, I'm going to beat you up. Tanyuj rubbed his hands against each other. When Murangye was talking, he was already waving his hands to attack the chatterbox king in front of him. He was asked to talk about the main points, and there were so many additional words. Murangye immediately showed a miserable expression on his face, flew to the distant horizon, and looked at Tanyuj pitifully. Just agree to go or not. I don't care, I want a vacation, I want a vacation. I want a woman, I want Lili, I want to be single. Murangye, a tall man who was over 1.9 meters tall, actually started acting coquettishly, causing Tanyuj, who was sitting on the lazy chair, to go berserk and almost hit the wine glass on the table with his hands. Not thinking that the cup was a new pet that had been purchased not long ago, the price was still very expensive, and the focus was on rare treasures, so he smashed it. You came to disgust me on purpose, didn't you? Tanyuj said angrily. Murangye shook his head quickly, smiled ingratiatingly, and placed the whiskey in his hand to please Tanyuj on the table in front of him. This is the whiskey you've wanted for a long time. I found a way to buy it for you. It's so valuable. I'm bleeding from the expense. Just accept this bribe and go in my place. Please. Murangye showed an innocent expression like a puppy, not picking up his moral integrity at all and letting him fall to the ground willfully. I'll just go, you can get out. Tanyuj couldn't stand the noisy man in front of him, so he waved his hand to drive him away. As soon as Murangye heard that Tanyuj agreed, he jumped up with a cheer. Long live Lord Tanyuj, he was swept away like a gust of wind. By the way, how long will the meeting last? Tanyuj remembered at this time that he seemed to have heard about this meeting, but he didn't pay attention to it specifically, and he didn't know how long it would last. Murangye, who was halfway through the run, listened to the footsteps, turned his head, and smiled awkwardly. 22 days, but you have to go a week early. What? When Tanyuj heard this, he almost picked up Murangye Ziyajing's whiskey and threw it at it. I won't go, you go by yourself. Before Tanyuj spoke, Murangye ran out like the wind, pretending that he didn't hear anything. 3 days later, however, Tanyuj took Secretary Zhang with a dark look on his face, and Secretary Zhang took his suitcase with him to London for a month-long meeting. Murangye, bastard, unexpectedly disappeared the next day, and there was no place to look for him. Tanyuj had no choice but to attend alone. Even if he doesn't go to a large-scale international conference like this for a month, he still has to make an appearance, otherwise it will have a certain negative impact on the emigrant group. Especially this conference has leaders from many countries. The largest international conference in recent years. London. After 2 days of rest, Qian Yuman was full of energy and was looking forward to the battle starting. Today, Qian Yuman and the others are going to attend a public dinner together as the Minister of Economic Affairs, the top person in charge of economic management on behalf of country F. Leaders of various countries and internationally influential wealthy businessmen are present. There were 3 accompanying translators, each of whom was responsible for different areas. As an intern translator, Qian Yuman was multilingual, majored in French, and her mother tongue was Mandarin, so she was sent to accompany this meeting. Qian Yuman knew that she was required to participate in the first event, and she almost forgot to keep up her appearance and shout loudly. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 772. Chapter 772 Reunion after many years 5. Qian Yuman knew that she was required to participate in the first event, and she almost forgot to keep up her appearance and shout loudly. It was an honor to be accompanied by important leaders to attend the dinner party after just 1 month of work. Jianyuman was very happy and prepared crazily for this. She hoped that she would perform well and complete herself perfectly at the evening banquet. Task. Time passed quickly, and the dinner party that Jianyuman was looking forward to began. Her ability to withstand stress is still very strong. Although it is her first time to work and she is faced with a heavy workload and she is nervous inside, she can be generous on the outside and carry forward her good temperament. Although Jianyuman has not participated in large-scale dinners as a worker, she has attended dinners many times. When she was with Tang Yuj, she represented Mrs. Tang's identity and participated in many dinners and dances held by celebrities. She won't lose her composure when facing some celebrities, because she has met many celebrities. She recalled that when she first married Tang Yuj, she would be so excited and at a loss when seeing some celebrities. Now, seeing these officials, she can calm down. Therefore, when it came to her first dinner party at work, she felt no pressure. If it was a simultaneous translation for tens of thousands of people, she was sure that her legs would be weak when she went up and she would not know what to translate. She understands that she is still far from being the best translator, but she will work hard to speed up and become an excellent translator. Jianyuman was wearing a finely tailored black suit, and her hair was simply tied up, which perfectly showed off the curve of her neck. She also had exquisite makeup on her face today, and she had an air of dignity that was rare for a famous lady. She stood there. The Minister of Economic Affairs has become a beautiful scenery behind him. When Jianyuman and others entered the banquet hall, they received many people's eyes. Most of them looked at the Minister of Economic Affairs, but Jianyuman himself was spotted out of the corner of their eyes. Jianyuman's appearance is definitely the type that is very popular in the West. In addition, she has become more feminine in recent years, which makes her look even more beautiful. Even if she sees a beautiful woman, she will be said by the translator from the East. Be amazed. As Tina said, the reason why Jianyuman was sent to London on a business trip 1 month after taking office was mostly because of her outstanding appearance, beautiful resume, and working conditions for a month, but she was still superior. Select this translation team. Some leaders even believed that Jianyuman did not need an interpreter and could only stand quietly behind her, which would give them face. In today's upper-class society, beautiful translators are not uncommon, but there are still only a few who have the ability and appearance. Jianyuman had just entered the banquet hall, and her eyes naturally swept around without showing any strange expression. She had a standard smile on her face, acting like a quiet little vase. From the moment she entered the banquet hall, Tina's eyes had always been on Jianyuman, and she was surprised to find that she was naturally facing such a big occasion. Next, Jianyuman's performance was beyond Tina's expectations. Jianyuman knew that she was just a newcomer now and would not represent the main translator of the translation team. Only when officials from country Z appeared, she would step forward to translate to the Ministry of Economic Affairs. Minister. Everyone present can speak Chinese language Z, but there is still a gap compared with Jianyuman, who was born and raised here. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 773. Chapter 773 Reunion after many years 6. Everyone present knows some Chinese language Z, but there is still a gap compared with the native Jianyuman. After Jianyuman translated several times, many translators looked at Jianyuman in a different light. I realized that this trainee translator was not only beautiful, but also had no stage fright when facing important occasions, like the dignitaries who often attended such events. What I didn't expect was that her translation ability was very good. Her French translation was fluent and without any mistakes. It was even easier to understand and more accurate than the translations by these old people. There was not even a single pause in the translation process. Many translators looked at Jian Yuman with praise, but Tina was even less impressed at this time. Unexpectedly, Jian Yuman performed much better than she thought, and the look in her eyes was even more jealous, especially when it came to economics. When the department minister nodded and smiled at Jian Yuman, her heart sank. Seeing Jian Yuman's confident and beautiful smile, Tina laughed in her heart. It's just the beginning, don't be too complacent, there are still many things you have to face later, and you will suffer some losses in the future. Jian Yuman didn't know that her outstanding performance had aroused Tina's deep jealousy. The more outstanding she was, the more jealous she became. While Jian Yuman was busy accompanying the Minister of Economic Affairs as a translator, an eye-catching figure appeared in the banquet hall at the same location. He was handsome, tall, and regal in his gestures. Even at a banquet where leaders of many countries appeared, neither will be suppressed. Tang Yuj came to the banquet hall with a vague smile on his face, accompanied by Secretary Zhang. When he arrived at the location, he didn't look at anyone present, and he didn't want to deal with anyone. In his opinion, there was no need. Of course some people will take the initiative to talk to him, without him taking the initiative. What's more, he is not enthusiastic about this kind of banquet. If it is not because he represents the company and must attend, he will stay in the hotel and not go out. Just as Tang Yuj thought, a few minutes after he showed up, a country's prime minister immediately came over, greeted him warmly and got close to him to see if he could open a holiday amusement park or resort there to give their country bring some tourism business, or do some other trade cooperation with the Emgrand Group. Having attended too many occasions, coupled with his super high emotional intelligence, he can always appease the other person with a few words without having to agree or decline on the spot. Tang Yuj is like a heartthrob, attracting the attention of many people wherever he goes, and of course Jian Yuman and his translation team are also indispensable. Jian Yuman happened to be translating for the Minister of Economic Affairs and did not notice the arrival of Tang Yuj. However, other people's eyes turned to Tang Yuj several times, who seemed to be a shining point. However, some people were curious about who Tang Yuj was. Most people were. I was conquered by his personal charm. Such large-scale economic and trade meetings and dinners rarely require Tang Yuj to appear. Basically, Murong Ye, the president of the Emgrand Group, attends, so Tang Yuj is not as well known internationally as Murong Ye. But can the big guys from various countries who can attend such a banquet not know that the real boss of the Emgrand Group is Tang Yuj? However, most of them met Tang Yuj for the first or second time, so there were not many people who came up to chat. Jian Yuman, who was busy translating, just didn't notice the presence of her ex-husband, whom she hadn't seen for 2 years. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 774. Chapter 774 Reunion after many years 7. Just because Jian Yuman didn't notice Tang Yuj, it didn't mean that Tang Yuj didn't notice Jian Yuman. Less than 10 minutes after Tang Yuj entered the banquet, he saw Jian Yuman in the huge crowd. When he saw Jian Yuman, Tang Yuj was chatting with the king of a country. His eyes were looking at a certain place casually, and he only caught her figure from the corner of his eye. His eyes instantly looked at her, and he wanted to say the words were choked in my throat and I forgot to say them. He kept his eyes fixed on Jian Yuman's smile and the confident smile on her face, standing behind the Minister of Economic Affairs of country F. It's been 2 years. He hasn't seen her again for 2 years. Tang Yuj has definitely had a hard time in the past 2 years. He often misses her and even wants to find her uncontrollably. However, he is afraid that his appearance will disturb her new life and affect her. When I see her, I'm even more afraid that I can't help but do something to hurt her after seeing her. In the past 2 years, in order to forget her, he had made a lot of efforts not to see her or see her. Even if he knew which country she was in and what her home address was, he had never looked for her. In order to forget her as soon as possible, I never even asked anyone to find out what she was doing recently. But 2 years later, he discovered how difficult it was to forget her. It was so difficult that it was more painful and difficult than anything else he could do. It took him 2 years to forget her. When he saw him again today, he realized that he was still thinking about her all the time. When he saw her again, he realized that his feelings for her had not diminished for a second. On the contrary, as time goes by, it becomes more introverted and profound. After so many years, he would always think of her painful appearance and her ruthless words that she no longer loved him and would not appear in her life again. Every time he thought of those words, his fragile heart would beat wildly. Chiener, do you know that I have been unable to let go of my feelings for you for a long time? His. Do you want your life to be good now? Seeing you standing there with a smile on your face makes me want to rush over and hug you. In the 2 years without me, you have become more beautiful and more confident. You are living so well. Your life must be on track. Did you miss me? The king in front of Tanyuj looked a little embarrassed. He had just asked some questions, but could not wait for Tanyuj's answer, so he asked again, and then he completely realized that he was in a daze, actually in front of him. The king didn't feel angry either. He just followed Tanyuj's gaze with an awkward expression and noticed the crowd Tanyuj was paying attention to. However, he couldn't understand who Tanyuj was paying attention to. But Secretary Zhang, who was standing behind Tanyuj, knew exactly who his boss was looking at, and he was actually looking at the former MRS Tang. Everyone knew a little bit about what happened between Tanyuj and Qian Yuman back then. As a personal secretary, he knew the reasons for their divorce and couldn't help but look at his boss with sympathy. It seems that my boss has not forgotten the proprietress until now. He was dumbfounded after not seeing her for many years. He forgot that he is now the king of a big country. Secretary Zhang still has to fulfill his duties as a secretary at this moment, and remind his boss to stay silent and watch the situation, so as not to lose the face of our emigrant group. Mr. Tang? Mr. Tang, Secretary Zhang leaned close to his ear and called Tanyuj seriously. The voice was not too loud but not too quiet, just enough for him to hear. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 775. Chapter 775 Beware of your country's translator being robbed. 1. Tanyuj finally looked back and looked at Secretary Zhang beside him with a confused expression. The king asked you if you don't have time to sit down and have dinner together in a few days. Secretary Zhang repeated the king's invitation just now, plus what he said, already 3 times. I agree, of course I agree, Tanyuj replied with a smile, and then he turned his thoughts back, not feeling embarrassed about being in a daze just now. Although the king of country Y opposite was curious about what he was looking at, he still smiled and continued talking. He was also a person with eyes. When he saw Tanyuj looking in the direction of Qian Yuman countless times, he couldn't keep pestering him to let him leave, so he left after chatting for a few words. After Tanyuj saw Qian Yuman, he never moved his eyes away for more than a minute. He kept staring at her back, expecting when she would notice him, and even more curious about what she would do if their eyes met. What look will appear? Indifferent? Excited? Disgust? Or other emotions? As if she was joking with him, she never looked here for a second, let alone notice that Tanyuj had been staring at her for a long time not far away. Tanyuj was in no mood to chat with anyone else. He couldn't concentrate at all and kept paying attention to Qian Yuman's every move. In the distance, Qian Yuman had just finished translating the translation of a leader of country Z. He stood behind and breathed a sigh of relief. Faced with his performance just now, he gave himself a high score in his heart and showed a happy smile on his face. This is a sense of accomplishment, a sense of accomplishment that can be achieved by representing the translator of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Country F for the first time. Translation inherently requires concentration and high-intensity work to quickly translate other languages into the native language. At this moment, Qian Yuman didn't even notice that anyone was looking at her, and it was even less clear that this person was her ex-husband, Mr. Tang Yuj, who was still immersed in work. Minister Jordan, a familiar and pleasant voice sounded, neither high nor low, coming from a place not far away. When the Minister of Economic Affairs of Country F heard someone calling him, he immediately looked over with a smile. Seeing Tang Yuj's handsome and smiling face, he immediately recognized the man as Mr. Tang, the chairman of the Emgrand Group. He had noticed Mr. Tang just now, but because someone came to see Mr. Tang every time, he wanted to talk to him later. Unexpectedly, the other party took the initiative to say hello to him. Mr. Tang, Minister of Economic Affairs Jordan, came towards him with a smile, intertwined with Tang Yuj's fingers, and even covered the back of Tang Yuj's hands with both hands. With a smile on her face, Qian Yuman turned her gaze to the person the minister was calling. When she saw clearly the appearance of the person speaking, she felt as if she had lost her soul for a moment. Mr. Tang, sugar baby, little Tang Tang, brother Wang, former husband. Looking at his handsome and monster-like face with some nostalgia, it was familiar yet unfamiliar. He is still so handsome. No matter where he goes, he is the shining center of attention. He is the celebrity that everyone wants to make friends with. Seeing the evil smile on his lips that she loved to death, her eyes were in a trance. It's been 2 years, to be precise. I haven't seen him properly for 2.5 years. Since she divorced him 2 years ago and left his world, she has been thinking about him all the time. I miss his good qualities, his bad qualities, and how cute he looks sometimes. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 776. Chapter 776. Beware of the translator from your country being robbed too. In the past few years, on the surface, she has been just like a normal person, and she will not show her vulnerable side to everyone, but no one knows better than herself how much she misses him. She would often miss him in the dead of night, to the point of bursting into tears. Not because she was afraid of disturbing her son's cry, but because she wanted to burst into tears. I wanted to take my son to see him countless times, but in the end I was pulled back by reason. For the first time, she experienced the pain of falling out of love, and for the first time, she experienced the sadness of falling in love with someone and not being able to get it. Seeing him again, he is still so eye-catching. It had only been 2 years since we last met, but seeing him again felt like we hadn't seen him for a century. Qian Yuman forced herself to look away. It had been 2 years. She didn't want him to see that she was still thinking about him. Her self-esteem did not allow her to do this. They are both divorced and no longer close lovers. Long time no see. At this moment, Tang Yuj changed the language of conversation from English to Chinese and looked at Qian Yuman standing behind the Minister of Economic Affairs out of the corner of his eye. Seeing her dazed look, her heart twitched slightly and her breathing became a little unsmooth. Has she noticed me? Are you in a daze for me? Tang Yuj's simple sentence of long time no see was like saying to the Minister of Economic Affairs. In fact, only he knew that he was talking to Qian Yuman. However, he did not dare to go up and say hello directly to her in a simple conversation. I haven't seen her for a long time, but I don't dare to face her directly and say it to her, let alone ask her if she is doing well now. After walking over, the person he greeted became the Minister of Economic Affairs. While the Minister of Economic Affairs Jordan was having a conversation, Jian was so busy being surprised and struggling internally that she completely forgot about her occupation at the moment. Instead, Tina immediately stepped forward to translate, thus avoiding the embarrassing scene. Ha ha ha, Mr. Tang, it's been a long time no see. Minister Jordan smiled happily at Tang Yu's greeting and replied immediately. After Tina translated a sentence, she immediately gave Jian a fierce look, reached out and gently pulled her, reminding her to do her job well and not to be fascinated by beauty. At this moment, Tina thought Jian saw the handsome guy and forgot to respond for a moment. Jian came back to her senses and blamed herself with some annoyance. Damn it, Tang Yu actually affected her mood and she was embarrassed. There is also this Tang Yu, but she remembers that his French is very good, even smoother than that of her, who graduated with a major in French. This must have deliberately spoken in Chinese to embarrass her, you bastard. Jian smiled professionally, and immediately came to Minister Jordan's side to take over Tina's Chinese-French translation. When we met in Paris last time, you said you wanted to negotiate a cooperation with me. How come you forgot about me after a few days? Tang Yu said with a smile, but there was a trace of regret and affection in his eyes. Jian listened to Tang Yu's Chinese, complaining in her heart, and translated it into French for the minister to listen to. The expression on Tang Yu's face remained unchanged, but because Jian was now standing behind Minister Jordan, when looking at Minister Jordan, he could look at Jian by the way, and he felt satisfied even from the corner of his eye. Yu Qi heard Jian quietly translating in the minister's ear. The voice was not loud but he could hear it clearly. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 777. Chapter 777. Beware of the translator from your country being robbed. 3. Listening to her sweet Oriole-like voice speaking French, he actually couldn't calm down his inner emotions. I haven't heard her voice for a long time. Although he still has some videos and some cute ringtones of her on his phone, these are not enough to understand his lovesickness, especially the audios will be somewhat changed. There is no other way to capture the wonderful feeling of hearing her speak in person, as close as only 1 meter away. Minister of Economic Affairs Jordan did not expect that Tang Yu would take the initiative to bring up the cooperation case he had filed before, and a joyful smile immediately appeared on his face. He never expected that Tang Yu would take the initiative to bring up this matter. Because he just said it casually at the beginning. The reason why he said it casually was not because he didn't pay attention to it, but because he said it tentatively, thinking that he would probably be rejected. Later, as they thought, the other party did not express any cooperation, and they were euphemistically promised to discuss it later. But he didn't expect that Tang Yu was destined to mention this matter today. How could he not be happy? This time I came to London to attend a meeting to see if there are any suitable partners for cooperation to develop the economy of country F better. The Emgrand Group, the 7th largest company in the world, has settled in France, which will definitely bring them tens of thousands of wealth. How could it be possible? If possible, I can spare time to talk to you in detail tomorrow. Minister Jordan responded positively, not wanting to let this big fat fish go and let things that can increase GDP run away. Then it's settled, we'll discuss the specific time with my secretary, Tang Yu said boldly. Minister Jordan was able to sit down and talk as soon as he heard that tomorrow was really going to happen. He was so excited that he could not express his emotion in words, even if he wanted to hide it. Minister Jordan and Tang Yu then talked a lot. They talked for half an hour. Jian was responsible for translating for half an hour, and his throat was almost speechless. She finally realized that Tang Yu must be deliberately teasing her, otherwise why would he keep chatting with the minister without using French? Jian pinched her throat uncomfortably and was thinking about finding water to drink. Her throat was a little dry and hoarse. It just so happened that since half an hour ago, Tanyuj had been pulling Minister Jordan to say that today he had just casually said a few words about the things that were supposed to be discussed tomorrow, although the conversation was not in depth. The two of them spend absolutely constant time communicating. There are not many people you will meet at a gathering like this. They usually communicate for a few minutes or 10 minutes, and rarely talk to someone for half an hour. People who Tanyuj came up to chat with before were usually dealt with within a few minutes. Tanyuj kept paying attention to Jianyuman from the corner of his eye. When he saw her pinching her throat, he immediately understood that his greedy desire to listen to her more had caused her some trouble. Minister Jordan, let's discuss the specific details tomorrow, Tanyuj spoke in French this time. Okay, I won't waste your time anymore, let's talk tomorrow. The minister didn't realize anything was wrong, nor did he realize that Tanyuj was speaking standard French. Minister Jordan. Kindness. Tanyuj raised the corners of his mouth slightly and pointed at Comrade Jianyuman standing behind him. Your translator is so beautiful. Where did you find such a beautiful translator? Minister Jordan smiled and was about to answer Tanyuj's question. Then he realized that Tanyuj had spoken fluent French several times, and he was a little surprised. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 778. Chapter 778. Beware of the translator from your country being robbed. 4. In addition, Tanyuj mentioned the beautiful translator behind him just now, so he turned slightly and looked at Jianyuman. At this moment, Jianyuman's cherry mouth was slightly open, and she blinked her beautiful big eyes. She brought the topic to herself, and even gave Tanyuj an angry look. What the is going on in his stomach? This is the translator our country just hired. As for the specific things, he was not very clear, because today was also the first time he met Jianyuman. Although Jianyuman is very beautiful, he is a henpecked person. I'm used to not even looking at beautiful women, let alone asking about Jianyuman. It turns out that she is the translator hired by your country. She is so beautiful when she is taken out, so be careful that I her away. Ha ha ha. Tanyuj laughed heartily, seemingly joking. But the speaker has no intention, but the listener has the intention. Jianyuman and others had different thoughts after hearing Tanyuj's words. The smile on Jianyuman's face almost froze, and her heart was racing with 10 million horses, and she wanted to dance to the rhythm of Little Apple. What does Tanyuj mean? Taken away by him? When she was his wife, why didn't you see him her? She says she loves him every day, but he doesn't respond at all, and now she still says such high-sounding words. Even if you are being robbed a lot, what will you do if Murong 11 finds out? 2 years have passed, and without her presence, he and Murong 11 must have finally gotten married. Damn it! The more she thought about it, the more unhappy she became. Ha ha ha. If the translator is willing, I don't mind giving up. Minister Jordan replied with a smile, not taking it seriously at all, thinking that Tanyuj was joking with him, because during the conversation just now, Minister Jordan saw Tanyuj several times with a joking tone. He would naturally not take his joking words seriously. Ha ha ha. That's what you said. Tanyuj opened his mouth and laughed along with the minister. Then he behaved like a gentleman and specifically asked Jianyuman in French. Excuse me, this beautiful translator, are you willing to work with me? Tanyuj asked politely, looking at Jianyuman as if she was an unfamiliar person. He asked politely, with a hint of emotion in his eyes. With a playful smile. I'm sorry, Chairman Tang, I'm very satisfied with my current job. From the moment Tanyuj turned the topic to her, she became a little unhappy. He actually looked at her with the eyes of a stranger, which made Jianyuman very unhappy. She had tricked her into marrying him, and today she still pretended to be someone she didn't know before. Are you pretending not to know me? She's not bad at pretending she doesn't know him. Oh. What a pity. I thought I could get a beautiful translator today and show off when I go out. Tanyuj shrugged regretfully and looked at Jian Yuman sadly. Jian Yuman smiled awkwardly at Tanyuj and laughed too. Chairman Tang praised me. I'm just an ordinary translator. I can't be as good as you praised me. Yeah. If you agree, just because I can carry you now, I will run home and never let you leave me again. Tanyuj thought so in his heart. Minister Chiaoan, your translator's answer made me want to resist her and leave her. This proves how charming she is. Tanyuj looked at Jian Yuman with a smile. Jian Yuman faced it calmly. As a translator, she couldn't be too angry. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 779. Chapter 779. Beware of the translator from your country being robbed. 5. Tanyuj looked at Jian Yuman with a smile. Jian Yuman faced it calmly. As a translator, she couldn't be too angry. After all, she represented a country at the moment and couldn't cause trouble for the government of country F. Faced with Tanyuj's words, everyone did not take it seriously and thought she was just joking. So Ren Xiaoxiao did not continue this topic. Tanyuj, Minister Chiaoan and others said goodbye and left. Tanyuj walked a little further, and his originally depressed mood of being semi-forced to come to London to attend an international trade conference became completely relieved and even a little happy. He couldn't hide the smile on his face, and his steps became brisk. Secretary Zhang glanced at his boss countless times, and then sighed silently. It seems that my boss still can't forget his former wife. He just said a word or two to the wife. His mood is obviously much better than before. Moreover, he has not seen this kind of happy state for a long time. It can be said that he has only been in this state for the past 2 years. The best day was during a business banquet like this, and it was the first time in history. Tanyuj took 2 steps, stopped suddenly, and turned to Secretary Zhang with a smile on his face. Secretary Zhang had no time to retract his weird smile and the ambiguous look. He was staring at his boss before he was caught by Tanyuj. Secretary Zhang chuckled awkwardly and looked elsewhere, but Tanyuj didn't want to argue with him about such trivial matters and shouted happily. Zhang Tianrui. Boss, please speak. I'll make an appointment with Minister Jordan when I get back later. Remember, I have all day tomorrow, and don't arrange anything for me tomorrow. Yes, boss. Zhang Tianrui nodded, mentally calculating to make an appointment when he left later, and arrange the time for boss. Tanyuj didn't finish his instructions, and even smiled happily at Secretary Zhang. You must tell Minister Jordan to have the beautiful translator from just now tomorrow. Yes, boss, I will definitely tell Minister Jordan to treat Mrs. Tang. Secretary Zhang has been with Tanyuj for nearly 10 years, and he still doesn't know what his boss is thinking. As soon as Tanyuj heard what Secretary Zhang said, he pointed at him with his finger, and the smile on his lips became even bigger. Yeah. Not bad, not bad. Secretary Zhang also smiled brightly, and couldn't help but complain in his heart, Boss, can you have some moral integrity? You look like you're smiling like an old gangster now, but he won't be kind enough to remind his boss. When Jian Yuman saw Tanyuj leaving, she felt a little relieved, and at the same time a faint smile appeared on her lips. Minister Jordan was chatting with the Minister of Economic Affairs of country M. Jian Yuman had nothing to do at the moment. In addition, she had been translating for half an hour. Now she needed a glass of water, so she said a few words to Tina and turned around to find water. The scene was basically filled with all kinds of wine. After walking a few steps, Secretary Zhang came over dragging a glass of watermelon juice that Jian Yuman loved to drink. Miss Jian, This is the thirst-quenching juice that my boss asked me to bring you. Secretary Zhang smiled naturally and handed the watermelon juice in front of Qian Yuman. Qian Yuman did not refuse and reached out to take the juice from Secretary Zhang's hand. Thank you for your hard work, Secretary Zhang. Miss Qian, please enjoy it slowly. Secretary Zhang bowed slightly and turned to leave. Qian Yuman looked at Secretary Zhang's leaving figure and stared at the juice in her hand, feeling melancholy in her heart. Tang Yuj is still as considerate as before, from childhood to adulthood. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 780. Chapter 780. She is my ex-wife. 1. Always pay attention to her needs and see her status. Taking a sip of watermelon juice, her heart felt warm and a sweet smile appeared on her lips unconsciously. The bad guy, even if he is divorced, will always do things that make her misunderstand, so that her little heart, which has never been calm, can't help but be moved by him. It's obviously a small move, but she actually has some control over it. I couldn't help myself and wanted to run over and hug him. No, she can't be so spineless. They are both divorced and have no relationship anymore. She can no longer think wildly about his little considerate gestures like in the past. Although Qian Yuman has been telling herself this in her heart, the sweet taste of the watermelon juice in her hand cannot be ignored, and it has always been sweet to her heart. Qian Yuman slowly walked toward her large army. Not far away, suddenly a man dressed as a Middle Eastern noble walked up to her and blocked her way. Excuse me, what do you call this beautiful woman? Qian Yuman didn't have a too strange reaction when someone came up to chat with her, she just smiled and nodded. Sorry, someone is waiting for me. The Middle Eastern man didn't want to let him go just like that, so he stretched out his hand with a row of gold rings to show Qian Yuman. He looked very rich. Beauty, don't leave in a hurry, you haven't answered my question yet. The Middle Eastern man didn't want to let her go so casually. Because almost everyone attended today's banquet, the men wore suits and women wore dresses, and Qian Yuman was dressed very professionally, so it could be seen that he was not invited by the host of the banquet, and the business attire had been guessed by the Middle Eastern man that he was accompanying the distinguished guests. Accompanying personnel such as translators or assistants who come to participate. As a wealthy man from a certain country in the Middle East, when he saw a beautiful woman like Qian Yuman, he couldn't help but approach her and strike up a conversation, regardless of whether she was willing or not. Qian Yuman's beautiful eyes slowly raised and looked at the Middle Eastern man in front of her, thinking of sending him away early. The man in front of her must know her name, and she was about to tell him her name. From a distance, he saw Qian Yuman being stopped by a man. The man who had been paying attention to Qian Yuman since she was looking for a drink just now walked faster than he thought, and walked over in one step. Blocking Qian Yuman's figure, he said with a smile. Prince Arthur, long time no see. I heard that you just married a princess some time ago. I have always been very sorry that I didn't go to your wedding last time. Tang Yuz's posture was natural, seemingly casually standing in front of Qian Yuman, extending his hand and saying he shook hands gently. The smile on his face was neither deep nor shallow, but looking at the eyes of Middle Eastern Prince Arthur, he wished he could reach out and kick him a few times. Mr. Tang. Prince Arthur also didn't expect that Tang Yuj would take the initiative to talk to him, and he would immediately smile brightly. I saw you just now, but unfortunately there are people around you all the time, so I don't have time to jump in line. Prince Arthur felt very sorry. He saw Tang Yuz's appearance from a distance and never had a chance. There were many celebrities at the scene, but there were not many young talents like Tang Yuj. In addition, Tang Yuj rarely participated in such activities, so he was particularly popular. Not many people knew that he was coming. Even those who knew about it only received news yesterday that Tang Yuj would come to London to attend this international trade conference. End of this chapter.